And then like one of the things, I definitely think you guys should touch on that, on how like as a tattoo artist that the community and like your coworkers definitely has an impact on your performance and how it is for the clients. And then also like before you guys start, um we can go a lot into like what having a creative outlet like or tattooing does for like your mental health and mental wellness. Because that's a lot of like what I was um also telling folks. So yeah,
Totally.
that's all.
There's this like familial aspect, I think, that is really interesting and unique to the shop that I think I was talking about it with you, Tina, when I was in Amsterdam, and that the energy in the shop is so similar, but and I don't know the artist the same way. I know you all at Tip
Yeah,
Top, but um, you, Louie, and Chris give sibling energy.
it is. We do. We're very similar. And, I mean, we have this whole Chris and Christina kind of
Yeah.
little skit. Like, yeah, it's like Raggedy Ann and Andy. We spend the most time together as well.
Mhm.
Um, and then, yeah, I think we already had like kind of a lot of like personality traits that were similar.
Mhm.
So that's funny because I think a lot of people kind of catch that vibe or
Yeah.
feeling. So, but you know what? People have thought Louie and I were siblings as well through different periods um, of working
Sometimes
together.
you bicker like siblings, and
Yeah,
it's really
that's
cute.
yes. Yeah. Chris and I could be like close siblings. Louie's the older brother,
Yes.
but yeah,
Chris gives in the best way possible. I think like that middle child energy, like, okay, 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 okay.
that's
Um,
funny.
yeah.
Especially
So
considering he's physically in the middle of the shop. He has to deal with Louie and I, yeah, constantly interacting over him.
that's so interesting too, just kind of like the dynamic, like the visual dynamics of the places. Like when you walk in, this may be interesting for Andrew and Lance to know. Like when you walk in, Louis is right there on the left. Zoom's not reflecting it appropriately, but Louis is right there on the left behind like the concierge desk. That's a very fancy word for what it actually is. With like flash and all of that. And then behind the second desk counter is Chris. And then behind Chris, but in under the arch is Tina. So you see all three of them in their little habitat. And it's just really, really cute. But yeah.
Camera turned off. Perfect. Okay.
Oh my goodness, I don't I look okay.
I think we're good to go. Should we mute everyone else?
Yeah, let's go ahead and maybe jump in. Andrew, thanks for taking over, admitting folks. Um, Tina, you good?
Yeah, right there.
Okay. Um, for folks that are watching, I am looking to the side because that is where my outline is. And if I don't have an outline, I will forget what I'm talking about. So, bear with me here. Thank you for joining Tina, Christina Harris, pardon me, Christina Harris and myself for our Ink and Insight Part 2. Part one was a hit. We had a lot of folks join us last, I believe, October, with Louis Perez III, who's a longtime friend of mine and previous bandmate. And so I got to ask Tina to join me. Just really brief intro. I'm Dr. Taylor Mizuno Moore. I'm the founder and clinical therapist at Mizuno Consulting. Um, we are a organizational consulting firm. I mostly primarily work with therapy clients, yet I have this really in strange maybe interest in the intersection of the medium of tattoos and tattoo art with mental health, and hence why we have this event and why I asked Tina to join. Thank you, Tina, for being here. You want to introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, my name is Christina Harris. I go by Tina. In tattooing, it kind of just was a nickname I adopted when I was apprenticing, but I've been tattooing 14 years. This February, I've worked in shops about 17 years. And yeah, I just kind of specialize in all styles and have primarily worked in Southern California. And I do have a degree in English and philosophy. So I bring that to my art, my conversations, and everything. So I'm just excited about this and this topic. And
Mm. Our conversations do tend to be, I want to say, like very eclectic and very well-rounded. Um, and I really thoroughly enjoy conversing with you because I feel like we do have a lot of intersecting identities, not just only as like humans, but also as artists. And so maybe we
mhm.
can pull in a little bit of maybe our lives as artists as well into our conversation. Um, but actually, our first interaction was not as this relationship here, but as me, a client of Louis. Do you want to share a little bit about how you and I got to know each other and how we got to where we are now?
Yeah, so I knew you through the shop. I also knew that you were good friends with Louis and that you guys had performed together and played music. So it's kind of nice because when we're all in a shop together, we're sharing time. So even though I wasn't tattooing you and you weren't my client, I still got to spend hours next to you and hearing you and Louis have conversations. And I feel like in most shops, it's pretty um, social. Everyone's talking to each other. So I got to just get to know you from afar. And yeah, and then by the time I actually tattooed you, I felt like we already had a rapport and kind of, I knew who you were and kind of your background and everything. So
Hmm. I felt like it was one of those interactions where I never actually got a first name. It was just ex two people existing in a shop, and just kind of sort of like knowing who we were. And then I think I turned to Chris maybe, and I was like, Christina, Tina, what do, who, uh, what's her
oh,
name?
it's fine. Um, I got Tina because when I was apprenticing, they are calling, when you're an apprentice, you're managing everything in a shop. I worked in a shop with 8 people. My name was constantly getting called. And they were like, Christina's too long. Tina works. We're just going to shorten it. We hear it all day. And then it just really became like synonymous with who I am in tattooing, um,
Mhm.
because this is like new name. Um, but I think that's the greatest thing about working in a shop is that I work with people who have clients and I don't know their name, but I know everything about them and I've shared time with them and, given them support through a tattoo. And
Mhm.
yeah, and it's kind of a special like bond and environment in that way.
Totally. Yeah. And I think like one of the things that maybe folks can't tell through like our virtual experience here is Tina has the most healing energy, just very kind and soft and warm. I really cannot emphasize that enough. And I don't mean that in like a like, oh, like Tina, you're like so yeah, yeah. But like truly it's really an experience to not only like be tattooed by you, but also just kind of like being in your presence. Um, with that being said, I think you have a really unique experience of being one of three um, in a shop and being the only woman too. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like being a woman in the world of tattooing?
Um, yeah, so it has changed so much and it's been really cool. When I got into tattooing, there were a lot of amazing women already, but it definitely was still like not as common, I guess. Like you would maybe see one, maybe two females at a shop, usually one female at a shop. And so like watching the kind of growth in tattooing and more people coming into the industry. The female community has grown a lot, but in I think a lot of environments, when you're kind of like the minority, you feel it and it affects like your interaction. Um, but it's also gives you like a role. Like I feel like in a tattoo shop, I always have felt like had a role as a female, be it like the caregiver, or like a different perspective, a different voice. And so that's always been like, I think really empowering and like beneficial to me because I always felt like I served a purpose or filled like a space in the shop. Um, and it definitely like has times where it's hard to relate because it's guys and um, just no matter how close we get, and we do spend a lot of time together, we have very different experiences in the world. And so it's that nice dynamic where I share time, I know these people, and we can share so much, but it's also like, as a female, it's always going to be like a little bit of a unique experience for me, especially since I do work in a shop where I'm the only female. Um,
Mhm.
and it's nice, I feel like I open those boys up to conversations they might never have, or um, and because they have that level of comfort with me. Yeah, it's really a kind of a special bond, I guess.
Oh, I've witnessed it. And yes, you do open them up, and yes, you do challenge them, and well done. Because you do it in a really beautiful way. And the exchanges that you have with them not only is just kind of like the psychological safety there in order to have those kinds of conversations, but your clients are on the table while you're having those conversations too. And I think it's just really joyous as the client to witness those dynamics too. It's really fun to to watch it. So I don't know if folks here have been to a tattoo shop before. There are some that are like pristine medical, like everything is white and it smells like alcohol. Um, for me personally, I really love when you walk in, you see flash on the wall and you hear the coils, and it does have like smell like rubbing alcohol. And there are men everywhere that are like tattooed from like necks and on the face, and that's kind of what Tip Top. That's where you work. Gives off like that vibe can feel, for lack of a better phrase, can feel really intimidating. And I'm guessing for 17 years being in this industry, I'm sure it hasn't always been like roses. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how that's been for you?
Yeah, a true tattoo shop is a different world, right? Like it is. There's the art, the sounds, the smells, everything about it. It feels like a different space and it's amazing and it gives it its magic. But I think it's that very thing that creates a little anxiety for people when you walk in if you're not comfortable because you do feel out of place until you are there either getting tattooed or for me like working in it. When I first started to get tattooed, it was a different experience because I got in my first experiences in a shop or as a client. Um, and so you start to become more comfortable. But once I started to apprentice and go into actually tattooing, it was like starting all over again. Um, in that it was intimidating. You're working with artists with, you know, 15, 20 plus years experience. They know everything about tattooing because it's their life and they've been living it. And you have like both this like sense of awe and respect for it. And then also, I think this kind of, fear that you're not going to fit in or, yeah, that like you feel this like kind of being out of place. And so I think like it's been really awesome because I came from like a different background and I wasn't sure, like how I was going to relate to everybody in the industry. Just kind of growing and realizing like the level of comfort that I could experience in tattoo shops and how like comfortable I feel now.
Mm,
It's yeah, just kind of like a really amazing process um, that has been very like fulfilling for me because now tattoo shop is a place where I feel the most comfortable. I feel like I have a home. I have like an identity in tattooing that has just slowly like evolved over the years. And
mhm,
it, as intimidating as it is, and I like that it's kind of intimidating because it makes it a memorable experience. It's also a place of community. And once you like realize that, I think it takes that like fear away or whatever kind of intimidation
mhm.
that's there.
I I want to piggyback a little bit on the community aspect that you were just talking about. This is not in the notes, so just bear with me here. Um, which is, something I shared with you the last time I got tattooed by you was um, I went overseas and went into a shop, and it felt so familiar. And you would think that it would feel foreign because, I'm a foreigner. But it felt very similar. The culture, it almost like it transcends everything. I mean, just from your experience and from what you know about um, that industry, why do you think that is? In terms of maybe how community and the bonds that are fostered through tattoos. How, I mean, I don't know, can't quite finish that question, but your
No, it's
thoughts?
a beautiful thing. I mean, tattooing is one of the oldest art forms, form of expressions in like human culture. Um, like for it's kind of came about as a form of, documenting family ties, your lineage, your tribe, and it has stayed with humans, throughout most of our history. Modern day tattooing came about through a community of people sharing knowledge from the creation of machines, the development of ink techniques. It was all passed down through like verbal apprenticeships, community, friendship. And so even though it's such a huge community now, and with social media and everything, it's kind of been able to, it's has a life of its own and its own momentum. But, around the world, you go into shops and there is this familiar um, environment because it all comes from one source. And you have different styles, different cultural influences, but even then, there's always been um, interaction and like the sharing of ideas. So, and the love of tattoos, like, um, sometimes it's just about, the experience. And so you have people that have dedicated their life to know how to do a tattoo and to know as much about tattooing as possible. And then you have people that have dedicated their bodies to the art form. And I feel like no matter what language, what shop, even in sometimes those sterile environments that aren't necessarily what I think of when I'm like thinking of a tattoo shop, you still have that. Um, and also just that going through the pain, like
Mhm.
people go there and they have to experience this like painful process. And so,
Okay. 1,000%. Um, and maybe this is a nice segue and transition into, the process of getting a tattoo. Um, well, I've got a couple of questions that are along the lines of what it has been like maybe for you to get a tattoo, and also what the process has been like for you to do the tattooing. I think some of our previous conversations have mostly been around the anxiety that gets stirred up going into that process, and maybe you can share a little bit about that.
yeah, there is a lot of anxiety about when you're going to get a tattoo and when you're, I think, about to do a tattoo. I know tattoo artists that have been tattooing for 20 years, and we all talk about this little bit of a rush. Is it excitement? Is it anxiety? Um, Whatever it is, our body is preparing for something. Um, and I think it's all about, like doing hard things. No matter what, like it's going to be painful, it's going to be long, it's going to be this, difficult process. Um, you want it. And so you kind of have to figure out how to get through it. And it's, I always tell my clients, like, it's going to hurt, but you want it. And so this could be a moment where you become empowered because I can do hard things and I can go through difficult experiences, literally painful experiences to get what I want. Or you can kind of suffer through it and you still get what you want.
Mhm.
But it's a very different road to it. And you kind of maybe miss out on a little bit of the positive side of the experience. And the same
Mhm.
thing with me. I'm a person that kind of has to deal with perfectionism and feeling like sometimes like I'm never doing enough or I always need to be pushing myself further. So every tattoo, big or small, is that process for me that I need to, even though I have anxiety about, how it's going to turn out or the drawing process, I can do hard things. And, like you go into it with fear, then you maybe have some exhaustion during the actual process of it. But the tattooer and the tattooee leave excited with this adrenaline rush. It's the best feeling ever. Uh, and I think that's why people, the joke, once you get one, you become addicted. But it's because you get such a wonderful, visceral experience. And then you're left with, a beautiful piece of artwork or a memory or just look cooler. And that's awesome too.
Mhm.
This feeling that you're a badass, for lack of a better phrase.
Totally. Um, I'm an anxious person. I'm a therapist. All right, I'm an anxious person, and let me tell you, Tina, your perfectionism is the most soothing thing for me to experience as an anxious person. Um, so for folks that don't know, I got a Super Grover tattoo on my ankle. Yes, Super Grover from Sesame Street with like the orange cape. And Tina must have placed that goddamn stencil like 12 times. Um, and I'm so grateful that she did that. Now, there is something to be said, I think, for someone going into a shop and getting something that is as stupid as Super Grover. Also, a shout out to Dobby, that is also on my thigh. Thank you, Tina, for Dobby. Um, that in order to go into a shop and give up control to your artist, it takes so much trust. And I feel so grateful for you and your perfectionism. And so I hope you know that your clients, I'm not the only one, are grateful for that. If you're one of Tina's clients, like throw it in the chat that, you know. So I'm wondering, when you get tattooed, I know you're covered. Like I've seen the crane, what does that feel like for you when you're giving up your control like that?
Yeah, you're so right. It is like this, like letting go. It's always about giving up the control, which allows you to have the best tattoo and experience. And I love that with your conversation in the first part one of this with Louis. You guys talked a lot about that. And I love getting tattooed because usually I'm getting tattooed by an artist I admire. So I am just so excited to have their artwork on me. I don't want to affect like the process at all. So I love to have that total um, just yeah, giving up of control and just going with their process and allowing them to kind of just have full creative like control over the process. Um, so it's very therapeutic for someone like me who is constantly worried about little details and how things are going to turn out and what could I do better to just let go and also I think the best thing about a tattoo is it's a human experience. It's a craft and there is no perfection in that. There's going to be so many variables to the outcome that it just is what it is. And you're going to love it. It might not even be what you're picturing when you go into it and it's on you and it's on you. So embrace it.
Mhm. Mhm.
I love the permanence. And I've talked with other people like other clients who have, perfectionism issues or control issues. And it's like, oh, how weird that we choose to do something so permanent that we have no control over. And I'm like, well, I think that's a part of the draw. Um, you just live and learn to embrace it. And it's very like freeing. Um, and I do that when I tattoo someone at a certain point, like after I put that stencil on 15 times, I have to just go in like it's going to be what it's going to be. And I have put in the work and the practice that I'm going to just move forward and whatever happens, happens. And if things go off, plan, I'll figure it out along the way. But
Mhm.
yeah.
There's this part, like this, mm, I'm trying to find the phrase, but there's a piece of this process for the artist, also, I think, for the client, that is trusting the process, even if you can't see the outcome. And I feel like I really resonate with that as a therapist, in that trusting the process is something I remind clients of all of the time, in that the for I think like clinical psychology, the science is there, in that we can show you the results of like, yes, this will work. Here's the science.
Mhm.
However, like there's this cognitive dissonance of, even though I know that it will work, the feeling is so uncomfortable that it's like telling you like, go away. I don't want to deal with you. I think that's like where the pain factor comes in as well. And I kind of want to like segue into maybe the pain of a tattoo a bit too, because I find that pain, well, I don't find, I know, because, you know, pain and pleasure, those two parts of the brain are so close together. Um, so the ability to tolerate it and to move through those feelings without moving,
Mhm.
without sneezing, falling asleep, which I feel like I'm guilty of. Um, it's quite difficult to stay still. Yet that's something that we actively try to practice in therapy, is stillness, mindfulness, be very present with the pain, whether it's mental pain or physical pain. So I'm wondering, what have you seen in your artistry, in your industry as a client artist, in terms of some of that distress tolerance?
Yeah, I know, and it's different for everyone. So when you're getting tattooed, seem very comfortable. I know that everyone obviously is experiencing pain or discomfort, or even just having to sit there for hours can become uncomfortable. But like you seem pretty calm and comfortable. And then I have clients that are definitely feeling it more. But it is kind of this like time where you can or have to practice meditation because you can't run away from it. So you have to sit in it and you get this opportunity to be present and kind of ideally think through how you want to experience the situation. And I feel like getting tattooed at least has taught me that I do have an ability to define the experience like mentally. So if I am embracing it, if I am in like at least trying to internalize like the positives of it, or think positive thoughts or empowering thoughts during it, it can change like the experience of it. I am not good at it in my daily life. I know I can do it with the tattoo, so I know I can do it in other period times in my life.
It's very
But
therapeutic of you, Tina. Yeah,
I feel like that's one of the greatest things about getting tattooed and my like me getting to tattoo, is that it is very therapeutic and it is like a little life experience, that you this like little moment of suffering or discomfort, and you get like a couple hours to grapple with it and to kind of see what you can do with it. But I think as well, there's this kind of acceptance that it does hurt and you shouldn't feel bad about it if you're in pain. I think I see a lot of my clients more distressed that for me that they're in pain or that they can't, handle it better. And so I really like to tell people, like, whatever your experience of it is, that's okay. It is what it is. And um, I think ideally, if you can control it or try to deal with it in a way that you where you can at least stay calm, that's a win. I'll handle the rest. I'm so focused anyways on just giving you the best quality work that as long as you're not jumping up out of the chair, I am happy and I'm proud of you. Honestly.
And you know what? Can we take a moment to normalize wanting your tattoo artist to be proud of you? Um, th there's a meme that circulates around all the time, and it's always like, and at the end of your tattoo, a little kiss on the forehead from your tattoo artist, and the phrase of "you sat like a rock, well done." Mwah.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's always the praise that we hope from from artists. Um, or I'll just speak for myself. But the I want to back up for a second and talk about the first 30 minutes of a tattoo. Um, a lot happens in the first 30 minutes of a tattoo. Um, Now, from a therapeutic perspective, from as a therapist, as a psychologist, I like to intellectualize what's actually happening, what's my body going through, what are my endorphins doing, dopamine, serotonin, what's the biology, what's actually happening, and when is it going to kick in? Um, for the artist, do you feel that? Do you feel the client feel all those things?
I think so. I definitely can sense if a client is more anxious or hesitant. Um, Definitely. And I think you can sense the calming, like, as they settle into what's happening. I think there's something so like important about just starting because there is the stencil process and that's when there's everything's a variable. We could change it. Should it go here? Should I change the design? Should I add some date to make it more meaningful? Like all of the variables, just the decision making. And then once needle hits the skin, we're in it. There's no erasing. We're moving forward. And I think as soon as that happens, there is like this calm of settling in. And you bring up the biology, and that's happening as well. The endorphins are kicking in, your body is responding and also kind of preparing you for the process. Um, and so for the artist, you kind of get to do that as well because they're settling in. They've, found their kind of place of meditation or, kind of settled into the awareness that this is happening. And then we can also settle in and start to feel, kind of that focus and energy of like the process kind of take control. And you're very like present and aware, but also you kind of can like step back and just let it happen and kind of go into, like that free flow kind of artistic process.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Were we, was this before we logged on or while we were still in during our recording event when we were talking a little bit about being in the car with family
Oh, yeah, I think it was before, but
before?
yeah.
Yeah, I was that Zen state. Um, I think a lot, a lot about one of my favorite tattoo sessions, and that's when you did the geisha on my arm. Um, I feel like I'm not allowed to have a favorite tattoo session, but that was a favorite tattoo session. I sat in a chair. I had an iPad on the
A little
couch,
armrest.
table, armrest. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
armrest. You were sitting down. You did this arm here, this geisha.
Yeah.
I had my little pen on my iPad and I'm playing Candy Crush. And you were like, I thought you were doing work. And I think we sat there for 5 hours.
Yeah.
Um, music was going, Chris was in the shop. I don't think we talked for most of that session. Yet there was some syncness and I felt some synergy. Um, it was very, very peaceful. Was I in pain? Yeah, I was in pain, but there was something just that kind of just like took over. Um, and I, but before we hit record here, I referred to that session as the peace that comes with riding in your car with your family in silence and not needing to fill space. I think there's a lot of anxiety that comes up with silence and needing to like fill it with, talking or and anyway, and what are you doing tomorrow? I didn't feel that at all. Is what's that like for you? Just feeling in the zone and you doing your thing.
Yeah. It's funny because like there is a lot of talking in tattoo shops and they can be loud and there's kind of this like I think as an artist, we know you're in pain, so we try to like kind of give you like the dinner and the show. Like we're going to perform for you a little bit, take you out of it. But there's also those times, yeah, where you're just locked in to the artwork and what you're doing. And I feel like it's like there's as much going on in those moments as if we were talking. We're still side by side going through this process together. I remember that appointment because that was the first time I tattooed you. So, um, I am just trying to do my best work for you. You had amazing stuff from Louis already. He's my mentor, so there's a lot of pressure self-induced, to like live up to that. Um, and so I feel like the fact that you were comfortable, you were obviously, trusting me and relaxed, was letting me also feel confident and kind of able to just fully like enjoy the process. And as an artist, when you can just really let go of a lot of kind of like the internal dialogue and just kind of go with the art, with like kind of the inspiration and, really like see where you're going and let that happen. Um, it's just such a like wonderful feeling for me as the artist and then you're still present for it. Like I'm sure when I'm tattooing you, you can sense when I'm like really enjoying how it's coming out and you can feel my energy. Um, so yeah, it's like interesting that I felt we were bonding and really got to know each other in that session. And it was probably the session where we spoke the least.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still this like shared memory for both of us. And kind of we play off of each other, even when we're not talking necessarily, even when it's like not verbal.
100%. And I think that happens too. And maybe this is unique to the shop. I don't I think I'm a little ignorant to the world of tattooing to know if I can speak to more than one shop. But it you can feel that when you're on someone else's table. And I was on Louie's table and you knew I was going to get a jellyfish and you knew where I was going to get a jellyfish. And it was the last I have a sleeve and he was filling in all of these spots on my arm. Now, if you know if you've had a tattoo done and you fill in these random spots and then the last part of the day you go to the armpit, that's not the most pleasant experience. But here I am, high on endorphins. I'm feeling great. Yet Tina looks at me across the room and is just, and I'm like, oh shit, what's gonna happen? So I think we also had a moment there too, where there was this like, I see you, I got you. It's gonna hurt, girl, but like it's okay. So there is also kind of some like support as well that also sort of like transcends verbal communication as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I know what that spot feels like. And yeah, like I think that's the great thing about tattoos is that when you have a few, you relate just by seeing, the tattoo on the person, the experience that they went through, and you can share that if you bring it up or not, it's there and it's appreciated, by both parties. Just kind of that like being able to relate to each other. And
Mhm.
when I'm tattooing someone, I know when I'm about to hit a painful spot, and how lovely to be able to just acknowledge it for the person. Like, I mean, how soothing I feel like of a role that I get to have of being like, I
It's so
know.
validating. It's
Yeah.
so validating for the artist to be like, yeah. Because
Yeah.
if the artist can say it, you're like, oh, okay, okay, I feel better now.
Hmm.
Um, and that reminds me a lot of therapy. That's that's the whole point of the event is we're coming back to mental health. It in that when you're able to validate when something hurts, when something is painful, when something is euphoric, and validate it for each other as humans, because at the end of the day, we really are humans. And you know, and right now we're going through. There's a lot going on. Um, so there's these human connections. I think it's really important to remind ourselves that they exist and there are words for them. And, there are beautiful people like Tina in our world that we can connect with. And yeah, Andrew, thank you so much for throwing Tina's Venmo in the chat if folks want to support Tina and Tina's work. Also, Tina's Instagram is at Tina Tattoo, right?
Yep.
Beautiful.
Come look at my work, and that's all that's the best actually. Just like knowing as an artist that some people are gonna see it and maybe appreciate it. I mean, for tattooers, it's the most rewarding thing because your art lives on and goes places. It's like a traveling museum or, like exhibit.
Hmm.
So it's, I think, the most rewarding thing to know that you create a body of art that travels the world, It's kind of like exciting. And the first Instagram, right? People just walking around with tattoos all over their body.
Yeah, absolutely. And like my spouse, you tattooed my spouse, and you know, he gets stopped all the time, and we're like, oh, let's send them Tina's Instagram because I think like that's how you market yourself, and that's really important as an artist is being able to feel supported by your community. And also before I have like rapid fire questions for you. we've got a lot of folks here, so chat is open for Q&A. You can ask us anything. Tina's got a breadth of knowledge, so please throw them in the chat. Um, and in the meantime, I've got a few rapid fire. Um, does a tattoo need to be meaningful?
No. Um, it's, I mean, well, it's both. It's adornment, right? Like it's artistic, it's visual. So that has to take precedent. Like it has to be visually worth putting on your body and wearing. And then meaning just adds to it. If it's meaningful as well, awesome. It's going to be meaningful no matter what, because it will represent whatever you choose for it. I have a pigeon on me. It's whatever. But to me, it represents, and it's so wild, but to me, pigeons are beautiful. And they're like I said it's like an urban peacock. They shimmer and they are fascinating and interesting, even though they are the most mundane bird. And that's what it, represents to me. It doesn't really mean that, but so I say just go with what visually adds to your, canvas of a body.
Mhm.
Me.
Um, physically, how should one prepare for a tattoo?
I always think about what they would tell you when you like before you take the SATs, like get good rest and eat breakfast. And like, but yeah, like
Uh-huh.
come in, eat a meal so that you are fueled so your body can take care of you. Um, bring snacks, maybe, bring a pillow if you think you're going to be in an uncomfortable situation and, just a excited, positive attitude.
Mhm. Mentally, how should one prepare for a tattoo?
Um, I mean, openness, right? Acceptance. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Things could go very smoothly. It might not be what you expect at all. I'm pretty heavily tattooed. I feel like I have a really high pain tolerance. And, when something doesn't feel the way you expect in that first second, it could really throw you off. And I think if you just come in with as easygoing and open of a, mindset as possible, you'll enjoy it and get the best experience out of it. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Biggest mistake for first timers.
Um, Not trusting your artist and going too small. You know, um, I think you and Louis talked about that fear. And, if you realize it or not, because of the fear, you run away from it a little bit. And I think a lot of people run away from the tattoo and they go small, they go light, they go less, less, less. And less means I can't do more. I can't put more detail. I can't make it as cool as possible if I'm trying to make it as subtle as possible. It's going on your body, fully commit, like if
Mhm.
you're getting dressed up, get dressed up, go all out, like don't do less. And definitely like trust your artist. We have dedicated our lives to this. I mean, tattooing, I think, for at least any good tattooer worth their salt, it is everything to them. You have given up family functions, you've given up relationships to master this art. I want you to have the best tattoo. I want you to have a better tattoo than you have even imagined. So if you are willing to, you know, give me that trust, I promise you, I will give you the best tattoo because we in tattooing say you're only as good as your last tattoo. I am only as
Mhm.
good as, what I did that day, and that's what I'm going to go home with. So let me make it something I'm proud of.
I look at the stitching on the baseball that you did for me every day. Go Dodgers. Um,
Thank
Emily put
you.
in the chat, what learnings about tattooing have you been discovering these days?
What? Well, I think for me now, it's really just, I think, kind of like pushing my art, learning like what I can do, and how I can keep developing after like 14 years of tattooing. And I think also, tattooing has changed a lot. So I think I had a more traditional um, apprenticeship kind of like introduction into tattooing, a lot of like history, a lot of appreciation for the artists that have come before me. And tattooing has changed a lot. So I think I really love to see tattooers embracing, how to adapt to the new like kind of environment of tattooing and to try to bring as much of the history and what we all appreciate to that and how to make it appealing for younger generations that are just teaching themselves and just saw it on TV and thought it was cool and might not necessarily have the appreciation for the just years of history progression that has gone into it.
Mm. There, I think something that is so interesting as a Japanese person is seeing the evolution of traditional Japanese um, tattoo artwork, like in the pages of beautiful portfolios, and seeing how folks have taken those what's the word I'm looking for? Um, mm, fundamentals, pieces of my phrasing is so off, but like what can be found as like, ooh, I like this and I like this and I like this, but I like these colors and I like these colors, and then kind of like making it their own and sort of like creating more of like these more modern, traditional hybrid. It's so cool to see. Um, so respecting the history and then also like
Yeah.
let's grow with it too. Yeah.
I think I learned this in an English class, but like, and in art, like there's an excitement and there's growth in breaking the rules. But to truly break the rules intentionally, you have to know them. So I'm pretty open and I'm like, you know, I don't like to tell people how to do things. So young kids come in, shake it up, love it. But you will shake it up intentionally if you take the time to learn about the history and, to appreciate it, even if you want to change it. But I think you really do have to start in the foundation of knowledge. Because like, yeah, and Japanese tattooing is such a perfect example because there's so much history. There's meaning in every image, how the images go together. They um, go back to different stories and mythology. And so to miss out on all of that, I think you miss out on a little bit of appreciation of the image, like what you're doing.
100%. Lance asked, where would you like to see the industry evolve?
Interesting. Even like, yeah, it's a craft. It's this human experience and art form. And I kind of just want it to go back to that a little bit as it grows, so tattooing it's a culture now and it's on social media and I love that and I love that more people are drawn to it than maybe would have been in the past because now they see it, they see what it could be. But I also just love the personal kind of like aspect of it. It's a person creating something with their hands for an individual. And I think like with everything going on, I just hope that I don't know, in a weird way, like just stays as important and kind of like acknowledged. Um, that it, tattooers are becoming rock stars, and that's awesome, but it's a folk art at its core, and that's the beauty of it. Yeah.
Mm. Um, just a couple more rapid fire. Um, color, black or gray?
And that's what stumped me. Um, Whatever you want. Just stick to, no, well, just kind of maybe stick to one or the other. It's sometimes when you mix things, it just looks incomplete. Like if you have a ton of black and gray and you just put a little bit of color, maybe sometimes that seems like you're going to add more color later and it just doesn't look complete. But I love both. I thought I was going to be a black and gray artist, and I do more color now than I ever would have expected. And I love it every day because it's like tattooing is new all over again because getting to learn a whole different like style and technique even. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I love it all.
What's your bread and butter?
You know, a lot a lot of tattooers have styles, and I feel like now also because of social media, a lot of people specialize. I started as a walk-in tattooer. I did whatever anyone asked for. And now because of that, and because I'm versatile and I love and the agonizing process of figuring out new styles and trying to like give people what they want. My bread and butter is families. I can tattoo your whole family. What does Mima want? Cool. And then I can do a skull on your brother, and I will do, like a dog portrait on the person, the animal lover. And I love that. I like that I get to be a part of like different people's process. So I think that's my like specialty is that I'm versatile and that I get to tattoo people from all different walks of life.
Mhm. Last question, and it's not on the outline. Have you tattooed the skydiving horse?
I didn't. I haven't. I know. Sometimes people ask you for things and then life happens
Yeah.
and they
Hmm.
and yes, the backstory on that is I had a very difficult request of a tattoo of a skydiving horse with lips flapping in the wind, and it was very difficult to imagine. And I ended up doing like two versions, and then the person had something happen, and they were traveling, and now they're no longer in the area, and I'll maybe never get to do that. But I look at it from time to time, and I'm glad that I at
Yeah.
least
You knocked it
rose
out
to
of the
the
park.
occasion. No, I should post it just because I am really
You,
proud of it.
yeah.
Um,
It I hope you do post it because it deserves some appreciation. Truly, when you showed that to me, I was like, oh yeah, the lips. Oh my gosh, phenomenal.
Thank you. It was just
Yeah.
cartoony enough, but still realistic that made you like kind of question, am I looking at a horse skydiving? Still odd.
The goggles and yeah, it was
Yeah, yeah.
fantastic.
I know, and I love that. It's ridiculous. And then I'm putting in the effort to research skydiving equipment to see what's accurate. But yeah, that's the fun process of it. Like it's
And I think like that's the dedication that goes into it is, you did the skull and Megasha and next to it you had a full-on anatomy pull-up. of a skull, and you're like, Taylor, check out this hair, and I'm like, way to go. Like I mean, there was just so much intentionality, and it was really, really appreciated. And thank you for letting me give up control for the many hours that I sat on your table. And I'm sure your clients also appreciate um, just not only your contribution to the world of tattooing, but just you as a human. Just truly, Tina's that's truly heartfelt and genuine. So really deeply appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that because I'm a very analytical person and that could be hard as an artist. So I have, figured out a way to maybe like what could be a weakness is now like a strong suit like point for me that I do focus a lot on details and accuracy, and that's what gives like a lot of people will comment on that in my artwork, and I really appreciate that. And it made me think that with tattoos like a lot of things that we talk about, anxiety and fear, these things that could be seen as like weaknesses, actually like in the tattoo setting kind of can be turned around in a moment of like strength and growth, if you utilize it in the right way.
Absolutely. And, I think that's something that I really resonate with as an artist too, is that, it's like, well, detail in something that is external gives an outlet to something I don't no longer need to internalize. So you brought up the Diagon Alley drawing. It's I don't have to, that is one giant manifestation of the anxiety I don't have to hold. And I feel like artistry, whatever medium it is, really truly serves a therapeutic purpose for the artist. And uh, the product is, folks get to benefit from whatever the outcome is.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. We can all do hard things and we'll be scared and we'll do them anyways.
1,000%. Yes, yes.
I wanna jump in for a second. I just want to say thank you to like anyone that came from LinkedIn. Just to give a little background on why we do these events is to have these kind of meaningful, fun conversations about these topics, and then come together in a Zoom session and just have a good time and really explore like the mental health benefits in these. I'm gonna drop our link tree in the chat, and I just want to say thank you for anyone that came through LinkedIn. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Andrew is our very hardworking marketing coordinator who just knocks it out of the park. Um, we we love Andrew so much. From he's chilling in New York, so it's very late over there, and um, so yeah, appreciate you all for coming. Tina, appreciate you and your time. Um, I'll be here for a few more minutes if anyone wants to stick around with me and hang out. Otherwise, have a very great night and rest of your week, y'all. Take care.
Yeah.